Well, good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about data, gathering data and how it can improve your business. So, some of you may be flower farmers, some of you may be interested in flower farming, some of you may just grow flowers for fun, you may be interested in how other flower farmers make a living. For whatever reason, you've come along here. And I'm going to talk to you about why it's really worth considering how much land you've got under cultivation, how many people work that land, and how many stems you cut from that land, and for what price. The reason it's really worth knowing is you may be surprised how much you can make out of quite a small area. And so I'm going to take you through how we work out what we do here at Common Farm Flowers. We are a 15-year-old flower farm. 2010, this flower farm began slightly on a whim, without any plan. I had no business knowledge. I was confident that I could garden because my mother taught me, but that did not make me a horticulturalist. I would still say that I'm a gardener rather than a scientific horticulturalist. I'm a gardener. I grow things. And I'm good at it. I have what they call green fingers. But again, keeping data means that you then work out why your fingers are so green, what you're doing by chance that works well, and that you can then repeat to make sure it happens again. I mean, obviously we are all bent over by the weather, but the more you know about why something works, the better you can make sure it happens again. You know, why is it that these ranunculus are so glorious? Why? If I hadn't worked out why, then I would just throw the ranunculus in the ground every year and hope for the best. But the fact that I have worked out what it is about ranunculus that they like in order to make them grow well means that I can grow them better. Not necessarily more, but better in order to achieve my objectives next year. Equally, the apple blossom, it's a wonderful year for crabapple blossom. Everybody's showing lots of pictures of their crabapple blossom looking lovely. Thank goodness. How does this work? Why is it a good thing to grow? What do I do with it? Can I make a living out of it? Am I growing it for my pleasure, for the bees, or for sale, or a combination of the above? So by taking data, we can then educate ourselves going forward. And as flower farmers, the more data we take and the more we contribute to a central bank of data, the more we can prove to the outside world that what we do is valuable, not just for the economy, but very much for the economy, but also for our individual local ecology. We are feeding our environment by growing flowers in an ecologically mindful way. So those are two massive things that we can prove to government if enough of us join in and register a little data. We will have educated ourselves, we'll know more about the land that we're working and why we're doing it and how we do it and whether it's successful or not, but we will also be able to contribute to the wider discussion of whether growing cut flowers for a living is worth it, is worth paying attention to. For those of you who grow along with me, you know it's worth it. You wouldn't do it otherwise. You grow flowers for sale because you can't help yourself growing flowers. You grow too many flowers, so you sell them. But how much land do you have? You don't know. You may be gardening on your back, you may be doing this in your back garden. You may have a poke of land that you rent off a nearby farmer. You may have a bit of field that somebody's letting you borrow or beg or steal, or you may be not steal obviously, but you may be working out of an allotment. What I love about this process is it proves to me how much you can achieve out of quite a small area. And I've got now, because I've done this process, I know what I take per square metre. Yes, it's a ballpark average, but yeah, I know what I take out of a per square meter wide running bed. All my beds are long, narrow beds. They're a meter wide. I know how much my income is, my turnover. So I can therefore, per flower, for the flower business, so I can then work out how much I take per running meter of meter wide bed. So that's a really useful figure, especially if I'm a small business and I want to plan in advance how much I need to live on. So I have to know how much I can sell. I know how much space I need to grow things for sale. I know that there are some things which are not worth very much money, and so perhaps I shouldn't sell them. I shouldn't grow them. But equally, there are some things which are worth a good deal more. Not mentioning ranunculus in particular. And so perhaps I should be trying to grow more of them. If I don't do the data work, I can't know these things for myself. But if I'm generous and I contribute that information to a central bank of data collection, then all of us growers will be looked at as if what we're doing is a more serious business by government and government agencies, which until today perhaps poo-poo us a little bit. Poo-poo us, look at us and go, yes, they're nice people and they're growing in their gardens. I mean, really, they're just having a nice time. They've got a few roadside stalls. What are they? They're not contributing much. Really? So, it doesn't matter if you are a member of Flowers from the Farm or not, but if you are growing in the UK, I would be really grateful, because then you'll be helping me as well as yourself, because we will all benefit from this. So if you're growing in the UK, I'd be really grateful if you clicked through on the form that I'm going to attach in the blurb to this clip and filled it out. So this is Flowers from the Farm doing a test case data collection of as many people growing flowers for sale as they can, UK growers, so that they can then have a better idea how many hectares are used for growing cut flowers, and what the economic benefits as well as the ecological benefits are for the whole of the country. There are 1,000 members of Flowers from the Farm, but I know there are a great many more growers of cut flowers for sale. I know personally a lot of people who grow cut flowers for sale and are not members of Flowers from the Farm. Your data is just as valuable as anybody else's, and Flowers from the Farm are not just asking members to give their information, because it's important that we have as much information as possible. It will benefit us all if we have as much information as possible. If only members of Flowers from the Farm are invited to fill in this form, then we're cutting our nose off to spite our face. All of us, members and non-members alike. So let us all fill in this form to give us a really great baseline, ballpark baseline, based on 2024 figures of what kind of land is under cultivation for growing cut flowers in the UK, what kind of turnover it produces, and how many, this is, ballpark, how many people are employed in this industry. And then we've got something we can take to government and ask for support. We can then prove to people that what we're doing is worthwhile. But we can't do it unless we all fill in the form. So what I did, it took me 10 minutes. 10 minutes, not even. And the reason it was easy for me is because I know how many running meters of meter wide beds we have. And the way I worked that one out, I didn't go out with a measuring tape. I went out and I walked them. So come with me, let's have a look. And then I did the same with this patch. And with the polytunnels. And with these badly arranged square beds, which have annoyed me for years and years and which one day I will sort out, but I could work out the square meterage on which we grow here at Common Farm. And I worked out that we have about, ballpark, 814 running meters of metre wide beds. Not very much here at Common Farm. I thought it was about 1,000. It's 814. What we also have are bits of orchard, good year for crabapple blossom, and we have sections of willow and hornbeam like this in wooded areas going around the edge of the farm. So, and I harvest from all of this. But this is sort of mostly woodland. I harvest not seriously from it. So I rounded up the space under cultivation here at Common Farm Flowers to 1,000, the equivalent of 1,000 running meters of a metre wide bed. 814 of them are traditional bed shape, and then I gave myself 186 meters of woodies, if you like, from which we do a lot of harvesting. So that's 1,000 running meters of metre wide bed. Now, that's really useful. It's useful information not just for me. If I've got 1,000 running meters of metre wide bed, or rather 814 running meters of metre wide bed, then I can work out how many plants to grow, how much I can fit in the space, how many dahlias I've got room for, whether I want to grow to make more space, whether I could do with more beds, or whether this is enough. Because looking at my 2024 turnover, I can tell exactly, because I kept my accounts, what I took turnover selling flowers. So if you were growing flowers in 2024, but I don't care how modest your operation was. I really don't care. I'm not interested in how modest. I love a modest business. Mine is a micro business. Yours might be much smaller. You may feel as though yours is way, way smaller, but actually, do you know how much space in acres 1,000 meters of metre wide bed is? 1,000 square meters is essentially 1,000 square meters. 1,000 square meters is a quarter of an acre. It's tiny. So if you've got a quarter of an acre back garden and you're growing cut flowers on it, you're growing on about the same space as I am. I've just got loads of room and I'm wasteful, which makes me walk further. But your business could be exactly the same turnover as mine. You could grow exactly the same number of stems on a smaller space. Quarter of an acre. Tiny, isn't it? I looked at that and I was like, really? Can't be so small. And I did the maths again. Yep, it's a quarter of an acre. So we wastefully have our 1,000 running meters of metre wide bed, including trees that we cut from, on a 7-acre patch. So we're really wasteful with the space. But I could be much tighter. I mean, obviously, if I put 1,000 meters of metre wide bed on a quarter of an acre, I'd have no room to walk between. I wouldn't be able to get on it. So maybe you'd need half an acre to do this, because you kind of need as much space again to walk around on and have a greenhouse and, your tool shed and some prep space and some shade to do your processing of flowers and so on. But you could do what we do on half an acre. And I think, we are, I think, considered to be quite, punchy flower farmers. And we're not, we're tiny. If I could do all of this on half an acre. Anyway, so I didn't know that until I did this, did the maths. But it didn't take very long to do. And because I keep my accounts very carefully, I know what my turnover is. And I can ballpark my stem count from my turnover. Going forward, in future, I think I need to be much more specific about what kind of stem I'm selling at what price, because I can ballpark my stem count from the amount of turnover, but I know that's not exact. Sometimes I sell my roses for more, and maybe I sell stems of snapdragons for less, for example. But if I get more organised about this going forward, then again, I'll have more information about what's valuable to grow and what's not valuable to grow. I'm a terrible one for going, well, I know that's more valuable, so I'll just do more of that, and that's clearly not worth anything, and anyway, nobody wants it, so I won't do that either. But it's better to actually work this stuff out. My colleague Nicola, those of you who are members of my club and have been in workshops will know my lovely colleague Nicola, who is a stickler for statistics and data. But you know, she can't sit me down and force me to do something. She's not here every day, otherwise she would be doing all of this. Anyway, so I can work out, ballpark, how many stems I cut from my 1,000 running meters of meter wide bed, including, you know, that's me rolling up to include the trees and shrubs that are not in beds. And I worked out it's about 50,000 stems off my quarter acres worth of tilled soil in a season. It's not bad, is it? That was 2024. I could do more. I will admit I'm quite wasteful. And the reason I'm wasteful is I teach a lot of workshops and there are only 24 hours in a day. And I like having a very small business. Luckily for me, it's a free, so far, we live in a free country, and you can run your business on terms, so long as it doesn't endlessly make a loss, so long as it makes a modest profit, you can run your business on any terms that you like. So I run a business which is about a third growing, cutting and selling cut flowers, and about a third workshops, because I love having people here, and I love teaching because I really want more people to grow flowers for living, because I think it's a great way to earn a living, and I can't be the only one. We spend billions on cut flowers in the UK every year. No matter what I did, I couldn't grow enough flowers to supply those billions. I can't have all the industry for myself. So I really enjoy teaching other people to do it, because then the more people growing cut flowers for sale in the UK and around the world, the better it is for our invertebrates. And if you look after the invertebrates, then the rest of the food chain looks after itself. So, which is the ethos of our business. So about a third of my business is flowers that I cut and sell. About a third is workshops and unexpected change in direction. About a third is income from YouTube and my club, and which I am incredibly grateful for and hadn't really expected. So the business we used to grow much more and sell more stems, and I've shrunk it because we used to have a business doing cut flowers by post that we sent around the country all year round, and along came COVID and we had to stop having any help here. And so I did all that on my own during the COVID year till 2020, from March 2020 to May 2021. After which I will admit I never wanted to see another flower order to go in a box ever again. And so I stopped it and I thought I'm going to try and do YouTube instead. And it worked. So I really, really enjoyed YouTube. But there are limited number of hours in the day. I could have carried on growing the many flowers to do the bouquets by post, or I could have built up my wholesale business, or I could have done other things with the flowers, and I could have employed people to do it with me. But I chose not to. I chose to stay small. So there are only so many hours in a day. And so I spend about a third of my time. Actually, I do spend a bit more than a third of my time. I probably spend half my time growing flowers. The way that my life works now is in the mornings I write or do admin, and in the afternoons I'm outside every day. I love it. I'm very lucky. I've worked extremely hard to make it so, but I appreciate I'm lucky. But it is not without data that I can make those sorts of decisions about whether I'm going to allow myself to work like that. So I then can look at my turnover and my stem count and the number of running meters and meter wide bed that I have. And I can come up with a figure of how much I make per meter. Nice, yeah, that's really, and you're like, oh, good, oh yeah, that's okay. Or I could do a bit better. Next year I want to do £10 more per meter, or 20 or £50 more, whatever it is. Clubbers, I'm going to put some of these figures for you later on. But for everybody else, you have to be a member of my club to get the finances. Sorry. It's worth doing though, because anyway, clubbers, you'll tell everybody it's worth being in the club. So, the form which Flowers from the Farm have sent out asking for this information, it took me 10 minutes to fill in. I shouldn't think it would take, unless you have no idea how much land you've got under cultivation. But you can either do what I just did, literally, you know, long strides along a bed will tell you how many running meters you've got, or the form gives you a link to a mapping tool, an online mapping tool that will kind of measure around the edge of your space and tell you how many square meters you've got under cultivation. So it took me 10 minutes. It wanted to know how many full-time staff we have, me, my husband. It wanted to know what the turnover was. This is private, they're not sharing it with anybody else. They're not going to say, you turned over X. This is, look, everybody, well, let's share with the world that so-and-so turned over whatever they did. No, they won't do that. But what it does is it all goes into the same pot of information that tells us, gives us a good idea what kind of a turnover the small-scale cut flower farmer in the UK is contributing to the economy. The same with the employment. How many people work full-time on your farm tells us how many people are working full-time and growing in floriculture in the UK. It gives us a really good idea. And then it asks for a ballpark stem count. And all the way through this form, you can say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But if you take the combination of the number of people who respond, the amount of land under cultivation, the amount of the stem count that people give, the employment that is recorded there, and the turnover, we begin to have an idea of what this small-scale flower farming, the artisan flower farming business in the UK is doing for the economy and our ecology. Incredibly valuable information. And if we have that information, we can then go to government and go, can you support these people, please? Can you give them tax breaks? Can you give them grants? Can you celebrate the fact that they have, share with everybody what they're doing for their local ecology? Look, this is what happens when you don't use lots of neonicotinoids, for example. All of this information will then make it much easier for government to support an industry which currently still doesn't have a tax code, as far as I know. And that's something to sort out, isn't it? And I remember years and years ago, I mean, some of you who've been following me for a long time will know the story. When we hit our VAT limit. You know, you hit a certain number of turnover and then you have to apply for a VAT number and you have to pay VAT. And that day happened probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into growing, I can't remember, but it was probably 3 or 4 years into growing flowers for sale here at Common Farm. So probably about 2004, 2005. And I rang up the HMRC, the tax office, and I said, I want to register as a small scale flower farmer. And the man I was speaking to said, well, you've either got to be a florist or a farmer. And I said, I'm not growing food and I'm not a florist. I'm a flower farmer. And he said, oh, well, there isn't a tax code for you. I'll put you down as a florist. And I said, but I'm not a florist. I am a florist, but I'm not a high street florist. He had a tax code for a small business on a high street. And I said, that's not what I do. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter, it's only statistics. Only statistics? No wonder the government thinks that there are no small-scale flower farmers in this country. So this is the kind of thing that filling in this form will do. It'll give the information which will mean that we as an industry are taken seriously. We take what we do seriously. Really important that we take what we do seriously. Take ourselves seriously. I mind about what I do. Years and years ago, I've told this story 100 times too. I used to work at American Vogue in Paris, and I worked with the wonderful, and he was such a lovely man, Andre Leontali. 7 foot tall, with an amazing deep voice. And he used to sweep into the office in a cloak. He was very glamorous and stylish and incredibly nice to we small people. And we were packing boxes which were called coffins, these big black boxes with couture dresses to go to New York for a cover shoot. And there were these very, very beautiful Chanel dresses with chiffon sleeves, hand painted with roses. And we were very carefully stuffing the sleeves with scrunched up tissue paper so that they wouldn't need steaming when they got to the other end and they wouldn't be creased. And it was fiddly and time consuming work, but the dresses were so beautiful, it was worth it. And Andre, as he walked past, he said, what you do may not be serious, but it's really important that you take yourself seriously. And I've stuck with that. That has stayed with me. Other people may think what I do is frivolous, but I will take it very seriously. And if I and you, if we all take our data and submit it, we can then prove to the government that while yes, it's lovely to look at, yes, it's pretty, and yes, we may really enjoy our jobs, but that doesn't mean it's not a serious business. What we do is really important. We feed our environment. There are colonies of bees and butterflies and invertebrates. Without my flower farm, there would be nowhere. There would not be the trees that we grow here. There would not be the 1/2 mile of hedges that we planted on the 7 acres. This would very likely be a field on which my neighbouring farmer, who's only doing their job, would grow silage. It'd be a monoculture of grass grown for silage. Instead of which, we've got 7 different kinds of orchids, wild orchids growing here. So we're doing a good thing. Right, enough of this. I'm sorry, I've been banging on. If you're not in the UK, do have a look. So I'm going to put this, the link to the survey, it's a SurveyMonkey survey, into the blurb for this clip. If you're not in the UK, do have a look at the survey. It's particularly for UK growers. It's because we need information for our government. But, look at it and see if you could answer the questions and what you would have to do to answer the questions. Consider asking your industry body to do a similar thing if they don't already. I suspect they probably do, but if they don't, maybe it's a good idea to start doing it where you are in the world. The more we collect the data, the more people will stop thinking, oh, look, she's just a nice, they look at me and they say, oh, she's a nice middle-aged lady. She's one of those particular, she's that kind of middle-aged lady. And she's having a really nice time with her ranunculus. Oh, bless. You can imagine. Honestly, 2 friends of mine, one said, oh yes, it's a lifestyle business in a patronising voice once. I don't forget, I'm like an elephant. And another friend once said, what makes you think you can do that? Both of them, red rags to this bull. I am a Taurian. But oui. Anyway, fill in your form, please. If you're a member of the Flowers from the Farm or if you're growing flowers for sale in the UK, please contribute to this fantastic beginning of the data collection for us. And then we've got a baseline from which we can get used to gathering this kind of data year on year, and let's see how we can improve it. Gives us something to improve on. And everybody else, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. My thing this year is to be both interested and interesting. So I hope I have been interesting, as well as I'm fascinated to find out what the results of this survey are. So I'm very interested. One of the things, my favourite thing so far is how little ground we grow on here compared to what I thought, and the turnover that comes from it. Right, thanks very much for watching. Clubbers, stay there. I'm going to do a little bit on the figures. Everybody else, if you'd like to know about the figures, you have to join the club. Bye. Well, hello and welcome to the Common Farm Flowers channel. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. The links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Right, on we go. So here are some of our beds. And we're very wasteful with our space. You can see we've got big wide paths between the beds. So we're lucky, we've got a lot of room. And so we give ourselves a lot of elbow room. Which in some ways is nice because it looks nice, but actually means that I walk further every day than I need to. So there, swings and roundabouts. But I walk along these beds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see? I do a long step, 1, and that's about a metre. It's ballparking, okay? I'm not really, sorry, it's very windy, so I'll come closer. It's very, this is ballparking. I haven't got out a tape measure, but I know that a long stride for me, I'm only 5'2", a long stride for me is about a metre. And I also know that all of these beds here are the same length. I'm always telling people, make the beds in your plot the same length because it's easier to do maths, easier to work out how much compost you need, how much time it's going to take to put the compost, how long it takes to weed a bed. All of that stuff. It's much easier if all your beds are the same length. Equally, when you're measuring, I only needed to do that striding along one of them, and then I multiplied it by the beds. So thanks very much for watching. Go and fill in your forms, please. And happy Easter, everybody.